I'm going to be discussing using ARI with the PHPARI library. Just a quick overview. I'll discuss what ARI is, and this is kind of the general how we're going to go through the speech. So who am I? I'm Matt Riddell. I run a company called Venture Voip. I was writing the daily Asterix news, although I think it's probably close to a year since I updated it, so it's hardly daily anymore. I'm from New Zealand, except I live in Panama now. I've been living in Panama for the last couple of years. Yeah, that's pretty much me. I don't know why I've got talking to Asterix there. So basically, in the past, there's been different ways of talking to Asterix. You've had AGI, Asterix Manager, or writing dial plan code. The idea with AGI is that you executed something in the Asterix dial plan, and it would go off and do things, but it can't really tell anything about the state of Asterix as a whole. The Asterix Manager was an external process that can connect to Asterix and read what's going on and tell it to do things. They've kind of sat in separate worlds, although sometimes people write AGIs that get populated by things from the AMI, which is Asterisk Manager interface. So now we've got a new, well, it's getting on now, a year or something. We've got a new interface called the Asterisk Restful Interface. And what that allows you to do is talk to Asterix with JSON encoded things. Basically, instead of having these calls that kind of you send them to a dial plan application and they go and they do some other dial plan application. The idea with the Asterisk REST interface is that you can create these applications. Instead of sending a call to the queue application, you can send your call to Asterix and it goes into a Stasis application. And the Stasis application is entirely controlled externally. So you're bridging calls together, you're taking bridges down, you're playing audio onto the bridges and stuff. And it's all really, really simple to do. And you can do it in pretty much any language you like because there's libraries that will explain how to do it and stuff. So there's a Java library, a Python library, C#, JavaScript, a Node client, and then Nia has put together the PHPARI library. Last year when I spoke, things were just really new, so I put together some PHP code, and I had to have some Perl code and some Python code and stuff just to make it all work, so that I could demo in PHP, but I actually needed the other languages. So now with PHPARI, it's a hell of a lot more simple. You're dealing with one library system that you install. It uses Composer and stuff. I'll explain a little bit more about that anyway. So in order to get up and going, you need to install Asterix, obviously. I use SVN. It needs to be version 12 or higher. The reason I use SVN is so I can pull in patches and stuff a lot easier. You can do SVN up to just grab the latest version and stuff like that. So 12 or 13, yeah, as long as it's 12 or higher, you'll have the Asterix REST interface in it. The next thing you need to do is you need to set up http.conf. This is normally in etc Asterix unless you've got your config directory in a different place, but so etc Asterix http.conf. You need to make sure that you've got enabled set to yes and that your bind address is binding to one of the network cards in your machine or to 0.0.0.0, which means that it will just listen on all interfaces. The next thing you need to do is set up ARI.conf. So obviously it needs to be enabled, and setting up the user and password stuff, it's pretty much the same as you do with SIP or anything like that. You've got your username that you're going to connect as here, and then your password down the bottom. So it's really simple. Add in your users and passwords. Reload Asterix to make the changes come in, or if you haven't started it, then start it up. And test your connection. Let's do a quick check. So okay, so I've got a user set up with Matt as the username and secret as the password. And okay. pull up a browser. What did I say, Matt and secret? Okay, so for example, this, it's kind of hard to see because it's in really tiny. This is me connecting to the ARI interface. I haven't, apart from putting my username and password on, I haven't done any setup in Asterix. And it's listing all the available sound files. And all that I've passed in, is, as you see in the slide, is I've connected to my Asterix IP on port 8088, which is what it's set to be using. I've said that I want to talk to the ARI, and the command that I want to send to it is sounds, which lists all the sounds. And that's pretty much how the whole of ARI is going to work in a basic sense. You're sending commands, it's responding with things, but it also has a WebSocket. So it can continue to send you events about things that you're interested in after you've connected to it. Okay, so the PHPARI library has got some prerequisites. You need to use Composer, which is pretty easy to install on most platforms. It's a little bit harder to do on OS X than it is on other platforms. I use Brew, which is a package manager. So you just go Brew, install Composer. When I did it a couple of days ago, it had to upgrade GCC and install a whole lot of other prerequisites, but it just goes off and it does its thing. That's on Yosemite as well, so it just worked on Yosemite. I didn't have to upgrade anything. You can get Composer from composer.org. Composer allows you to install packages and stuff for PHP projects. So the way that works is that you add in a composer.json file inside your project, somewhere inside your file, and you say what it needs to use. For example, we've got here the Greenfield Tech NEAR's PHPARI and the branch that it uses, and that specifies to Composer what it's going to, what libraries it's going to need to download into your local directory. And then you run Composer install, you just type it in the command line right inside your project, and it will go off and it will populate subdirectories underneath your project. So for example, let's have a look. Awesome, I've got no keyboard. Okay. Okay, cool. So, what it did, when I ran Composer install, it created a vendor directory, and it filled it up with all the bits and pieces that it needs to do PHPARI. All I have to do is include the autoload.php. That's it. It's going to include everything that I need for my project. So I'll show you an example as well. Okay, so inside there, there's a phpari.ini file, and that configures where it's going to be talking to. So you've got your username and your password, just like we typed in the browser, and the host. Everything else is pretty much the same. You've got a WebSocket transport. You can specify that it's logging to a file, or you can specify that it's logging to the console. For this example, we've just got it logging to the console. Okay, so real code. This is a really simple example. So as I said before, you just require the autoload file. The autoload file goes and collects all the libraries and bits and pieces that you need to be able to use it. It's just printing out what it's doing. It creates a new PHPARI object, and then prints out active. I've changed this a little bit because it was easier on a small screen. It prints out active channels, and then we print out the actual list of active channels. So I'll go into that in a second bit more. So if I create an active channel, okay, so I'm listening to awesome music on hold. Okay, so you can see I've got one channel up. Okay, so this is the file that we're going to run. Helps if I spell correctly. Okay, so what I've done, let's go and have a look at that again. So we've got a PHPARI connector. We're talking to the channels from it, and we're asking for the channels list. And I've just made it so it's a little bit easier to see by doing print R. So if we go back and have a look at it, you'll see that it's listed my channels. It's connected to Asterix. I don't even need to do anything about that. All I did was instantiate the object. It's gone and it's shown my channels that I've got. So what state it's in at the moment, the name of the channel, caller ID information. If it's connected to anyone, it's not, because I'm just listening to music on hold. And where it is in the dial plan and creation time. So you can see that's like, I mean, effectively, if you remove the lines of text, you're looking at 3 lines of code to connect to Asterix, list the active channels, and put them into an array that you could pass through and do what you like with. Let's get rid of that music. Okay. So the idea of stasis is it's a place in Asterix that you can send a channel and then you can deal with it. So, for example, you might think of like the queue application. If you send something to the queue application, the queue is now dealing with that channel, right? It knows what to do with the channel. A stasis application, you connect it to Asterix and you say, okay, my stasis application is called Hello World. And then you can send a call in the dial plan to the stasis application called Hello World. So you go stasis, Hello World, as like extend equals 100,1. So you can see here, to send my call to a stasis application, all I'm doing is saying stasis and then the name of the application. So when you connect from Asterix, sorry, from your PHPARI application, you can say, hey, I'm going to create this new application, this new stasis application, and it's called Hello World or whatever it's called. And whenever someone goes in there, I want to know about it. I want to know that they've started in my stasis application. I want to be able to deal with those channels. So I might say, okay, look, give me the name of the channel that comes in. I want to bridge it to another channel. I want to play some audio to that channel. I want to make another outgoing call and bridge those two together. They're now in my stasis app. I am now in control of that channel. So for example, if you wanted to write the queue application, you'd take a call, it goes into the stasis app, which you've created, and then you could have a list of all the agents that you've got in another stasis app, and you can create a bridge and bridge those two channels together. And using your own database, or your own method for dealing with what order the calls are in and who's up next to receive a call. So at lunchtime, I think we were talking about the idea that you can now take someone out while they're waiting in queue. You could do other things with that person, like running surveys with them. Paul was doing this thing, so you can run a survey for the customer while they're sitting waiting in the queue, but they're not actually waiting in a queue. Your queue logic's all on your own database and stuff, so you can do whatever you like with that call while they're waiting. It's not like you have to pull them out of the queue and then remember their position and put them back in later on. You have 100% complete control of that call. So one of the other speeches the other day was about the idea of replacing voicemail with a Stasis app. So you're sending someone into a Stasis app. As soon as it comes in, you get full control of that call. You don't have to, with the standard voicemail app, you have to be based on their IVR. You can't decide that 7 now does this and the tree goes differently. You have to follow the method that they've already done. But with Stasis, you can create an app that does all that really simply. Okay, so an example of a Stasis application is inside the PHPARI library. What it does is that it connects to Asterix, like we said. It connects and says, hey, here I am, my name's Hello World. You send a call, just dial 100 or whatever, and that goes to Stasis, Hello World. And then the Stasis app gets full control of that call. So, let's have a look at that. Okay, this is a bit more complicated. Most of the code in this example is used as the skeleton for creating the app. So if you take this, then you can add in and remove bits and pieces as you want. Let's just give you an example of it running first. Okay, so the application started and it's connected to Asterix. And of course we have before, like I showed you, the Stasis app sitting on 100, Now actually, Matt Jordan was saying yesterday that you should always have a hang up after your stasis application, because a stasis application may try to continue after it finishes. Anyway, where are we? Dial plan reload. Okay. So it was 100. So what? Let's stop it for a second so we can see what's happening. Okay. So we've got a whole lot of stuff that happened here, and I'll stop this one as well. Cool. So, okay. So this class, which is called Basic Stasis Application, does a few things to get started. It saves some local variables, which it's going to use to hold all the information in. And it's got a constructor, which fills those local variables with the objects from the PHPARI. You can see here, it's creating a PHPARI object, and then it's setting the things on it. We can skip through the rest of it for the moment, because where it really starts is down here. Those other ones are just functions that are going to get called later. So what it does is it starts the application. It uses the constructor to create a stasis application. Remember at the top we said that the class name was Basic Stasis Application. Yeah. And in the constructor, it's got app name. So down here, our app name is going to be Hello World. Oh, that's funny, you can't see the blue. It then creates an event handler, initializes the event handler, and connects. Okay. So in our event handler, which is back up here, okay, here's our Stasis app event handler. So the first thing that it does is it waits to see a Stasis start event happen. And a Stasis start event is thrown by Asterix anytime that someone jumps into your Stasis application. So it's the first thing that you hear about is the Stasis start. The next thing that it does is it gets the channel ID for the channel that's come in. It answers the channel, which is already answered in my dial plan, but anyway, and it plays the demo thanks file. So what it's done here is all it's doing is it's saying, it takes the PHPARI object, it's dealing with channels, and it's doing channel playback, and channel playback takes in a channel ID, which is the channel ID we got at the beginning, and then the file that it's playing is a sound called demo thanks. So, and you can see at the end there, the last object, the last text is the ID that it's going to call it, so that whenever it finishes playing that file, it knows that that file is finished playing because you've set it. It's like an action ID if you've been doing Asterix Manager. This is how we identify that action we've told it to do. So once it starts playing it, it will get another event called playback started and just prints out to the console. And then we look for the playback finished event, which is sent when it finishes playing back a file. So then remember we set up here, it was the ID of the thing that we're trying to use is play1, so that's the ID that it's going to be dealing with. So we then check on the event playback ID when we get the playback finished, and if it's play1, then we play this file, and we say, okay, the event ID that it's going to throw is play2. So then after it plays that, then we say play. If you see a play2, playback finished event, then it will play another message. And then when it gets to the end, it continues in the dial plan. And it can receive DTMF and stuff as well, so you can see that you can receive a stasis event called channel DTMF received. So basically, anytime that you're dealing with anything, you're going to get your events and stuff as well. You can also say that you're interested in receiving certain events, you don't want to receive certain events, so you can do event filters and stuff as well. Okay. I just wanted to show you one other thing. I'm not connected to the internet. Okay, so the Asterix Wiki has got a web page which shows you what are the different types of events you can receive, and also what are the different methods you can do to bridge channels, pull down channels, playback audio onto channels. There's probably also documentation inside your library somewhere where someone can look through just through PHPARI or through the channels file or something like that? Yeah, that was the other thing. Okay, so Nia put together a PHPARI sandbox, which is, it works and stuff, it's just got to go live onto the internet. And what that will allow you to do, it's like, I don't know if you guys seen the Swift playground, where you can type out some code and just see it happening in real time, what it does. So it connects to a local to it, Asterix interface, and you can see things happening. I guess you're going to be able to call in or something and see events come through as they're triggered. So yeah, so that will be up as well. That's on the PHPARI website. But yeah, also you can find some stuff inside the PHPARI directory. It's hard to show on the screen because everything's so, no, you can't even see that. Okay, cool. So has anyone got any questions about anything? We've got Nia here who actually wrote the PHPARI library as well, so if you've got any deep technical questions, or I can give you an overview, or I can answer things about ARI in general. Anyone got any questions? You got to have a question. Okay, here we go. One sec. Let me get a microphone for you. Check. Sweet.
So this seems like it's opposite of AGI, where for AGI you would go out to AGI. The status application has to check in. So how do you support like a cluster of status apps?
Look, okay, that's a really cool thing about Stasis is that you might be talking to 20 different Asterix machines.
One status app?
One Stasis app making connections out to different machines, and then you can maintain state about where one channel is on a different machine. You can bridge them across machines and stuff. So all of a sudden you can do things like, oh, I need to take machine 75 out of service. I'm going to migrate those channels across to another machine in real time, and then bring them up again later on a different machine, you know, and you just update your own personal state. So an Asterix becomes an interface rather than the controller of everything, you know.
So the point of failure to those 20 Asterix machines is that one status app.
Yeah, I mean, but you could run 20 Stasis apps as well. There's no reason why you couldn't have lots of Stasis apps connecting to different machines, because your state can be your database or whatever you like. Then you might have MySQL replication, so you got 3 or 4 MySQL machines where the state of each channel is, where each channel is in the servers, and if one Stasis app falls down, then you can have that another one pick up from where it was where it had, and have all of your state stored in the database, and it picks it up and keeps going with it. Yeah.
So 2 status instances can connect to one Asterix server?
You can, I mean, yeah, you can have as many Stasis apps connecting as you like. They would obviously have to be with different names. So, but you could in your dial plan, you can continue on after a Stasis app. If one's not there, you can continue to the next one. You can go to my primary interface, Stasis brackets, my primary interface, Stasis my secondary interface, Stasis my third interface, and it'll just fall through until it finds one that wants to deal with it. So, yeah. I was going to say to throw, but it'll probably make a real horrible noise. Any other questions? Wow, we're silent today. Okay, we've got one all the way down the back. Awesome.
Yeah, so what are the performance considerations of the ARI versus AGI and AMI?
Okay, he asked what are the performance considerations of AMI versus ARI versus AGI. It's pretty new. I haven't personally done thousands of channels, but I'd say it's a lot more lightweight. I mean, have you done any kind of benchmarking of it? Your application. Yeah.
Think about it this way.
Take the microphone, sorry, man.
Think about it this way. When you were working with AGI, okay, so AGI was very much dependent on how much performance you can get out of Asterisk and what are your bare metal performances. Now, AMI was more or less the same, but again, you're stuck with network I/O. You have to deal a lot with multi-threading on the other side, on your client side. Now, ARI in that respect is very much similar from a Stasis app point of view, because once you write a Stasis app, it needs to be able to handle all those requests coming in from Asterix concurrently. Now, PHPARI is based on the React framework, which comes out of Zend, which is very much scalable in that respect. So I'm fairly sure that it should be able to handle several hundred calls at the same time running from a single Aster server or multiple Aster servers. Now, the question is, how much will it handle? The answer is, depends on what you're going to do with it.
Yeah. I think one of the other things is that, like, say, for example, like, I'm bashing on voicemail at the moment, but say the voicemail application, if you pull up the voicemail application in Asterix by sending a channel into it, I'm just using it as an example, it's got things like mailbox support for dealing with postfix servers and stuff like that, that you're not even, there's no way that you're going to be using them. There's a whole lot of crud that's been built up over time around these applications that now you're dealing with bridging calls and playing audio, and there's such small things to do. If your application's written well, you should be able to get a lot better performance out of it than, yeah. And as people use the libraries and stuff more, we'll probably find hotspots in the libraries and where performance can be improved as well. I do. Is there a new? Okay, sweet. Yeah, I saw that you had a few changes in. Okay, sweet. Any other questions? Okay, well, you've got like 5 minutes until there's I can't even remember what it's called, but there's another presentation that's kind of like an Asterix wide presentation. Let me find out what it's called. The roadmap, there we go. Okay, so the roadmap presentation's on at 3, you've got like 5 minutes to get there. Thanks all for your time and for coming. And also fill out your forms as well. Try and sign your forms and stuff.